Islam.
So, Tesla Sarbay, Moorish Science Temple, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Moorish Divine National Movement of the World, here in Canaanland, Toronto Territory, Toronto County, Ontario Territory. Today is Monday, March 12th, 2012, and it's another Monday where we're going to get into it. So, with studying 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Mother and Father of love.
Mother and Father of love.
Truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is our protector.
Allah is our protector,
our guide, and our salvation. By night, and by day. Through His and her holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Amen. Ameen. Ashe.
Islam. So today is going to be just a continuation of proving the validity of the Moors, incorporating that with the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, going through books with references so the people could go see what we see and be able to come to some type of clarity with regard to our liberation and what we're really supposed to be doing as quote-unquote black, Negro colored African people, right? So we're going to start today with a reading from The Black Man of the Nile. So this is for all our blacked out brothers and sisters that are conscious, that know themselves, that have been studying from Dr. Yosef A.A. Ben Yakinen. So this is Dr. Ben's book, Black Man of the Nile. And notice that black is written in all caps, right? Black is written in all caps. So even Dr. Ben's letting you know that black's not the identity of the man, right? So this is the Black Man of the Nile, page 332. The following works should assist the student, researcher, and general reader in this latter point. Sedgwick and Tyler's History of Science, page 141, 163. So Sedgwick, S-E-D-G-W-I-C-K, and Tyler's History of Science, page 141 and 163. Zeller's History of Philosophy, the Introduction, page 31. And George G.M. James' Stolen Legacy, and Eva B. Sanford's The Mediterranean World. So that's 3 books for you to go get, that Dr. Ben says go get, right? So you can understand your history a lot better, and the history of the Greeks' interpretation of African and Asian philosophy. So the first book is Sedgwick and Tyler, History of Science. The second book is Zeller's History of Philosophy. The third book is George G.M. James' Stolen Legacy, and Eva B. Sanford's The Mediterranean World. In analyzing this aspect of the indigenous Africans of North and East Africa high culture, particularly its zenith, one has to remember that a latter group of indigenous Africans of Northwest Alkebulan (brackets Africa) called Moors have preserved much of their ancestors' teachings in the works confiscated by the Greeks and Romans from the Egyptian and Nubian mystery system. which European and European American educators and others very much later have notoriously misnomered Greek philosophy. So we'll just read that part again, so it could sink in what Dr. Ben's saying, right? This is the same thing that Moore's been saying for all these years, right? This is Black Man of the Nile, 1970, right? And when you see they have these videos out there about people going to check Dr. Ben at the hospital and at his home or whatever, wherever he's staying at, right? And trying to use him to give themselves some popularity, because consciousness is a popularity contest now, right? No different than rappers who has the longest chain and who has the biggest chain and the fastest car, right? Playing the game and having people jump on that game, right? Not recognizing that they're playing themselves. Because Dr. Ben, Pan-African black scholar that all these people look up to, Negro, black, colored Africans look up to and say, yes, we respect him and his work that he did to bring us the knowledge of ourselves that we didn't have. He said in his book, this is not a Moore's book, this is his book. Like, people are going to tell him, yeah, he's an African scholar, right? In analyzing this aspect of the indigenous Africans of North and East Africa's high culture, particularly its zenith, one has to remember that a later group of indigenous Africans of Northwest Alkebulan, brackets Africa, called Moors, have preserved much of their ancestors' teachings in the works confiscated by the Greeks and Romans from the Egyptian and Nubian mystery system, which European and European American educators and others very much later have notoriously misnomered Greek philosophy. Unfortunately, most of the Moors' works remain untranslated in the Arabic language which they used. The very few works translated into the English are mostly out of the reach of the average student, and most certainly beyond the reach of the general public. These works include medicine, science, pharmacology, astrology, numerology, astronomy, religion, art, music, magic, history, law, and other branches of the arts and sciences. However, the English translations of Leonardo Pisano's work in Arabic on mathematical science are just a few of those available now. So Leonardo, and don't forget this is 1970, so because you didn't really take Dr. Ben as serious as you were supposed to, right? Some of these works that he put out there for you to go get might be unavailable now, right? So Leonardo Pisano's, or Leonardo Pisano, Pisano. There are other works of his on philosophy and morals, the natural sciences and metaphysics, which may be found at tremendous costs. Equally, there are available English translations of Guido the Monk from Arezzo. So Gideo, Guido the Monk, from Arezzo, Arezzo. English translations of Gideon the monk from Azero's musical notations in Arabic, which were copied from Nile Valley African treaties and other works. Some of these are also available in English language, but equally as expensive. Of course, there are countless others, many of which are visible in the works of Tyler and Sedgwick, particularly in their book, History of Science. The African Moors, not Arab Moors, extensive knowledge of ancient Egypt and Nubia was due to their constant cultural exchanges with their Northeast African brothers and sisters through the diplomatic relationship which existed between both groups. Many of the works of the Moors recorded were unknown to the Greeks and Romans. Most of them were stolen from Egypt and Nubia by Arab Muslim invaders who also sacked the depositories of learning of the Nile Valley cultures, as did their predecessors from Persia, Assyria, Greece, and Rome. A very good example of this type of works being mentioned could be seen in Ault's A-U-T-A-U-L-T, and the book is called Europe in the Middle Ages, page 216 to 219. It should also be noted that a number of medieval European scientists and members of other disciplines, such as Copernicus, Roger Bacon, John M. Kepler, received much of their basic understandings from the researches they made when they became in contact with the original treaty on science which the Africans of Northeast and North Africa originated and developed from the works which the Moors introduced to the Europeans when they entered the Iberian Peninsula and southern France in 711. Under the command of African General Tariq, from whom the rock Gibraltar is named. True, the Arab Moors and Berber Moors are contributed in this respect to the Europeans, but they followed the African Moors. The following works are testimonials to the above. C.H. Vail, so letter C, H, V-A-I-L, book is called Ancient Mysteries, page 59, 61, and 75. F. H. Hitti, H-I-T-T-I, the book is History of the Arabs. Annie Besant, B-E-S-A-N-T, Esoteric Christianity. Copernicus and Kepler's writings shown in great books of the Western world. Stanley Lane Poole, The Moors in Spain. J.A. Rogers, World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1. Herodotus, Histories, Book 3. It must be noted that these works also show that Pythagoras, a native son of Samos, secured the necessary consent of the indigenous Africans of Egypt and Nubia, particularly the high priest, before he was allowed to enter the mysteries system to learn some of the secrets of the Osirica, which the African Moors also alluded to. And we'll stop there. Go by the book. Because even Dr. Ben now, not now, since 1970, is telling these people that call themselves Negro, black, colored, African, and Egyptian, whatever, that the people who took the ancient Egyptian and Nubian mysteries, right, and who were the custodians of it were the African Moors. Some people would leave Moor off and just say African. Just like some people would leave more off and just say black. Or they'll leave more off and just say Arab. Or leave more off and just say Muslim. So more is a specific distinction. Like it is an actual distinction, right? And the purpose of it is to show that there is a foundation, and that the foundation always goes back to the Moors. As much as people don't want to believe it, they don't want to accept it, Dr. Ben said, and I'll go with Dr. Ben before I go with anybody. Dr. Ben said it all. And he said the exact same thing that Noble Drew Ali said. No different. Right? Making the connection between all of these so-called different groups of people who are really the same people. Moors. But we don't want to accept it. We want to play around. Like, you know, you going to go see Dr. Ben and ask him if he knows about Moors. When in his book, Black Man of the Nile, it's saying, they didn't say once in here that the black man got anything from the ancient Egyptians and learned anything of the mysteries. Right? It was specific that it was the Moors. Like specifically said the Moors were the ones that got the ancient Egyptian and Nubian mystery systems information. Dr. Ben said so. But people still are going to go against his wishes, right? Because he specifically said African Moors. So Africans are Moors. So you don't have to call yourself African if Africans are Moors. But Dr. Ben said it. Islam.
I'm going to read some pages from Spain and America by Charles Gibson. It talks about Moors and going to around the 15th century, in the fall of Granada, and just to show that, yeah, it was a Moorish empire, a global network. Before 1492. So chapter 1 is called Spain and the New World. Dominating the 15th century expansion toward the south was the celebrated Prince Henry of Portugal. It was Prince Henry who was most responsible for shifting the focus of internal European maritime activity from Italy to the Iberian Peninsula. It was Henry who mounted the Portuguese maritime attack 1415 upon the fortified Muslim city of Ceuta in the first act of state-directed imperialism of modern European history, collecting, insofar as he was able, the records of early Asiatic and African adventures. Henry further undertook to extend Portuguese activity along the Atlantic coast of Africa. In his character and outlook, he embodied a medley of motivations derived from the medieval heritage and from the contingencies of his own epoch, motivations in which nationalistic, Christian, commercial, scientific, and military purposes were united in a common effort. It is doubtful that the establishment of a sea route to India played any major role in his original design. He expressed rather a continuation of the warfare of Christians and Moors, a curiosity and eagerness for geographical discovery, and a desire to capitalize upon the trade routes of the African interior. His project for establishing contact with the supposed Christian kingdom of Prester John, and thus for surrounding Moorish Africa with Christian armies, was in full spirit of the war against the Mohammedan invaders of the Iberian Peninsula. In all, Portuguese expansion was his principal occupation and objective, and he devoted himself to this with rare singleness of purpose. Henry transformed the irregular Portuguese voyaging of the 14th century into a planned attack upon the imperfectly known geography to the south, and by implication upon the whole concept of a limited European world. At the time of his death in 1460, Portuguese maritime enterprise had extended its influence nearly to the equatorial line, a distance of some 3,000 miles down the African coast. And then note to this, says chapter 7 of the work by Gomez Inez de Azurra, the principal contemporary chronicler and authority on Prince Henry, the chronicle of the discovery and conquest of Guinea, C. Raymond Beasley and Edgar Prestige, Trans London 1896, is an analysis of the motives that impelled him to send out his expeditions. Azurara lists 5: curiosity of knowledge, commercial opportunities, the need to discover the extent of the Moorish power, their search for a Christian king with whom an alliance could be made, and the expansion of the faith. Azurara adds that all derive from one main cause, the inclination of the heavenly wheels. For modern interpretations of Henry's motives, the two statements of Beasley have not been improved upon. Prince Henry of Portugal and the African Crusade of the 15th century, American Historical Review, and Prince Henry of Portugal and his political, commercial, and colonizing work, American Historical Review 17. So from this, we can see that, just a note on the kingdom, it talks about his project for establishing contact with the supposed Christian kingdom of Prester John. Now that's, if I'm not mistaken, that Prester John was some sort of church pastor or priest who traveled to different Moorish territories, and I think he was apparently was told about the Americas, or he traveled in the Americas, and so that was interesting that he would be looking for this Christian kingdom, because I think the Christian kingdom that he's talking about is when he came to America and found that there are people who believed in one God and had similar Christian symbols. And then the other thing is, one of the reasons that Prince Henry wanted to expand was to the need to discover the extent of the Moorish power. So if he had to discover the extent of the Moorish power outside of the Iberian Peninsula, then that tells you right there, like, he's a prince of an entire kingdom. You wouldn't just be sending ships out to discover the extent of a Moorish power that didn't exist. Right? So that book, Charles Gibson, Spain and Africa. That's why when we talk about the Moors, we don't talk about those Moors over there. We talk about us, at Moors in a specific space and time. You can talk about a specific space and time, but you're a Moors. Dark skin, you're a Moor.
And it's not like we don't know that it's hard to accept that reality, but that is the reality, right? It's not something of fiction. Like, these are actual books that's been out since the 1970s, like Spain in America. Spain in America is copyright 1966. 1966. And why is it that it's 2012 and we're just hearing about the Moors now? Like, hearing about it and actually digesting what's going on. You know what I mean? Right? 1966 this book is. Pages are yellow. Right? This book stood the test of time just so that the Moors could have it right now and use it as a reference. Because that's how the Moors set it up in the first place. Because what did Dr. Ben say? We the Moors, did inherit magic from the ancient Egyptians and Nubians. Magic could be whatever. You could think magic is pulling a rabbit out of a hat. But there's higher magic than that, right? Just like we say, no props needed, because the truth is its own prop. So if we're presenting information on the Moors, right, and people want to still argue about the fact that, well, the Moors are Arabs, the Moors are Muslim, the Moors say Allah and I'm not down with, doing the Hajj or something. Your concepts are wrong. And Dr. Ben did an excellent job in clearing up the fact that everybody's Moors. There's African Moors, there's Arab Moors, there's European Moors, there's Arawak Moors, there's Olmec Moors, there's Seminole Moors, there's different types of Moors.
Global extent, right?
Globally. There's German Moors, and then the German Moors still spell it, and it sounds like Moor in German. Like, what more do we have to be told by everybody else on the planet? That's why Drew Ali said that we're forcing our uncivilized position on a civilized world.
From the perspective of trying to be Negroes, blacks, and coloreds.
Like, we want somebody to accept our fictitious position. When they don't accept it, we blame them. When our own tries to come and tell, it's like on the weekend, right? This is how black people get down, right? On the weekend, there was this lecture. Umar Shabazz, right? Umar Johnson was here in Toronto, and he did a lecture about saving our black boys, right? Because apparently, from what he's been told, right? There's this black boys problem in Toronto, that we need to fix this, and you're a psychologist and you have degrees, so we want you to come and speak to us about ways that we can help save our black boys, right? So black people, right, set this up. So black African people, right, conscious people, not like people who don't know what's going on, people who know what's going on as far as conscious level, right? So we're sitting down, we're building, this other brother building, right? And we're building about the state of Toronto and the quote-unquote black community, and the fact that we have this Afrocentric school, right? That, there was a committee of sisters that fought and fought and fought and fought, and they were able to get this Afrocentric school, for, our people, our children, right? But the school is in a school that was a school before. And then they cut that school in half, and then basically gave, them half, and then the other school has half, so they share the school, right? So the brother's saying that, well, it's ours, so we should put as much, into it, because, we have something now, right? And my thing is, well, what about the indigenous schools? What about the schools that were independent, that were, can't pay their rent because, the black community is not supporting them because they say that they're too expensive. But now that the school board steps in and gives them this black school, Afrocentric school, that's free, they're going to withdraw all their children from the independent schools to go to this school that was created by the same enemy that they're complaining about is dumbing down their children. Switch, right? That's the hypocrisy. that he didn't know about, Brother Umar, right? Because the black people don't tell the full story. They just want to be the victim. The African doesn't want to tell the full story. They just want to be the victim. You know what I mean? Just to deal with that issue too. This is a Coney 2012 thing going around right now. Like, this is the first ever man that's putting children in the army. Like, that we have to draw attention to this guy, this one guy. And now everybody's looking at this one guy and they're robbing the gold. Right? the most important thing that people want is attention. And if they could get attention in mass, then that's energy that they can use in any way, shape, or form that they see fit to do that. Right. Because they're the ones that did the ritual. So because they did the ritual, the action, is going to take place, and whatever comes from that action is going to benefit the creator of the ritual. At the expense of the victims. At the expense of the victims. Right?
It's perpetual.
And they put themselves in that perpetual state of victimization. Because Dr. Ben told them in 1970 that they're Moors. Moors are saying that they're Moors and they don't want to hear it. But they're going to go to Dr. Ben and pretend like, you know what I mean? Right, when you wrote. Pretend like he never said it. Out of his own mouth. Out of his own pen. When this is documented, like fact. This is his book. This is not somebody else's book. Right? The same people that are going to go to this man when he's on like in the state that he's in, right? Like, how are you right now go back to the black thing again, right? How are you Dr. Ben's protege and you're not having a campaign to like sell these books in masses and get them shipped to the continent or something? So if you want people to learn to read, make them start learning to read with this book instead of the kindergarten picture books that they keep sending to the continent. Right? How about do that with your black money? Right? But nah, they're not gonna go that route. Right? They're just gonna go visit. And it ain't no different. It's a pattern. No different than Moors bickering and complaining. But ask them how many of those Moors have this Moors book that he wrote. How much people have this Moors book? How much people just support this person and just, thanks for the work that you've done, here's some stuff. Here's some free stuff. Just so that, you could know that, we appreciate the work that you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not happening. Why? Because nobody wants to deal with the facts. Everybody wants to run around the truth. Right? There's nothing, right? Like, everything was done. Right? Everything is speaking in our favor. If we just take serious what our scholars teach us and what they write in their books. Like Dr. Ben said it. Black man of the Nile and his family. Everybody that's conscious has this book. Everybody that's conscious. Everybody who claims that they know thyself and they were aunts or whatever, they have this book. And the teacher, the doctor, is saying in this book about the black man of the Nile that Africans are Moors and Arabs are Moors, and the Egyptian and Nubian mystery system, the Moors were the ones that were the custodians of it. And then he also referenced George G.M. James' book that says that too. Right? So this is the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. The Vienna Convention on Consular Relations of 1963 is an international treaty that defines a framework for consular relations between independent countries. A consul normally operates out of an embassy in another country and performs two essential functions. One, protecting in the host country the interests of their countrymen and two, furthering the commercial and economic relations between the two countries. While a consul is not a diplomat, they work out of the same premises, and under this treaty they are afforded most of the same privileges, including a variation of diplomatic immunity called consular immunity. The treaty has been ratified by 173 countries. Under Article 36 of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, 1963, VCCR, local authorities must notify all detained foreigners without delay of their right to have their consulate informed of their detention. At the request of the national, the authorities must then notify the consulate without delay, facilitate unfettered consular communication, and grant consular access to the detainee. Consuls are empowered to arrange for their nationals legal representation and to provide a wide range of humanitarian and other assistance with the consent of the detainee. So these are the civic lessons that were taught in the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, because it was a civic organization for civic activity. And civic activity meant, your status creates the jurisdiction. So if your status is, for example, Moorish American, and you are part and parcel of this said government, then you would have a consul that deals with your activities between the state where you are domiciled and the state that is creating the jurisdiction that says somebody lives somewhere. So in occupation, there has to be a way out. Somebody can't occupy a territory and not have a way out for the people who are under occupation, right? The way out is nationality. The way out is proclaiming your nationality. The way out is connecting yourself to some type of nation so that you don't get caught up. Just like the Sundry Free Moors said, we don't want to be tried under the Negro Act, because they were consular, right? They were the relations that had to happen with them couldn't happen because this wasn't where they were from. They were from somewhere else that were here and got caught up in the slave fraud. And putting these pieces together would let us understand where all these millions of people came from that they brought over here on the ship. Because majority of the people that came from Africa over here didn't come here on a slave ship. They came here on their own free will. Because we're the navigators. Why would Europeans bring us over here? Why wouldn't they take us to Europe? Why would they bring us over here? What's their reasoning for bringing us over here, right? When they're from Europe, and us piecing it together, us clearing up the madness, right? Us meaning Moors, because nobody else is trying to clear up the madness. Everybody wants to live in the madness, thinking that everything's cool and we could just call ourselves anything, right? Status is the first issue on every level. If you have no status, then jurisdiction can be assumed. And once jurisdiction that is assumed, then you're at the mercy at whoever's assuming the jurisdiction. Because they're assuming the jurisdiction under a color. They're assuming the jurisdiction under a color. They're not just saying, we create this jurisdiction. Under color, they're creating the artificial jurisdiction. And when they do that, this is why, right, like Christopher Columbus discovering America is them creating an artificial jurisdiction. Because Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Right? So just that statement creates an artificial jurisdiction. Artificial and assumed. Because somebody has to assume no one is on that land in order to claim that they discovered it.
I forget that.
Right?
Robinson said that in that case, I'll go down to New York City and discover it.
Right. Right? Exactly. Right? So when we, as Negro, black, colored, African, etc., realize the truth about our nationality and birthrights, then we would take it serious.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way they're going to find out the truth about it is if Moors tell it. And if Moors aren't telling it, it most of the time isn't because they're insincere, it's because they don't know any better. Right? Because they were taught by Moors, who were taught by Moors, who were taught by Moors that killed the Prophet.
Mm-hmm.
So information is going to be withheld. Right? This is why if you're somebody who came into Moorish information in the last, say, 3 to 4 years, in your searching for, a source to try to get this information from, you had few people that would pop up when you go searching for information, right? You might get like Stanley Lane Poole talking about Moors. You might get Ivan Van Sertima, right? As far as like the title of the book, like when you go looking for stuff, right? There's not too many books that have the title that's Moor in it. But many books, when you go check the index and you look up Moor in the index, you realize how much Moor is mentioned in all these books that we have at home. That we always, we don't read every book. Let's not lie to ourselves, right? Like most books we have as references, right? Especially, books with regard to history and stuff like that, right? There's sections, right? But saying all that just to push the point of there's obvious fraud going on. There's obvious color going on. There's obviously something wrong, and we can't really figure out what's wrong, but we know that something's wrong, right? That thing that's wrong is that somebody's assuming a jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And we don't really understand that it's a jurisdiction that is only assumed. It's just assumed. Somebody's just assuming. So if something comes that can trump the assumption, then that claim wins automatically, right? Right. This is where people who are studying this are going with the whole mortgage fraud, right? That somebody's claiming to have possession, but if you can prove to them that they don't have possession based on what they're claiming the possession item to be. So like they would say, okay, well, if you have a home, then the possession item is a deed. That means that you own it, right? When that's not really the possession item, because there's a title higher than the deed, but the titles get lost overseas because they're using that as money. When they talk about, when they say the bond of the birth certificate, let's say, they would say the bond of the birth certificate is worth this amount of money based on what they calculate the actual flesh living being is going to output in energy till the time of their death, because they know when we're going to come in, they know when we're going to leave based on this, having the astrological information, right? So that the paper that they use to create this idea that it's worth $1 million is not in their possession, because they use that as collateral to get things overseas to create allies. But what's happening is that everybody else that started to take these artificial paper as money, they're starting to realize that it's not real. It's not backed by anything, right? But they're caught because they just gave some arms for them to go somewhere and do something to some people, right? So they can't come out and say, oh, well, you guys are doing the fraud money, because now they have something on them that, well, you're selling us arms to go take over your neighbors, right? So this is how the world's governments are caught up in the whole corporate fraud, right? Why they started having the Olympics and the 5 rings, right? And the 5 rings are the 5 denominations of money that everybody had to accept.
Would have started back in Greece's time, in Greece, was that estimate?
Well, like that wasn't Olympics. That was just among those people. The Olympics is international, right? The Olympics is way bigger than anything that they were having in Greece or Rome, as far as the stadium, whatever they would have, that's like one basketball game or whatever, where are we going again?
Okay, 5 denominations.
The denominations, yeah, right? So when
5 denominations.
Yeah, like the penny, the nickel, the dime, the quarter, and then either a $1 piece or a $2 piece, or right. Once everybody agreed to that fraud, then they had the 5 rings to show that everybody's down with it, right? And all the countries that are in it, because it's a corporate thing, right? It's really corporate Olympics. It's just like with the sports. They don't care about the livelihood of people. They just have this paper that people think is worth something, so they give them 80 million of nothing, and then this person goes and destroys their body. For somebody else to make triple, quadruple the amount of paper that they were given, that's not worth anything. And with this thing going around, you can see why some people are upset. Some nations on the planet are upset, and they don't want bailout packages and all that stuff. They want you to bring back the gold standard. Yeah, why are you gonna pay? Why are you gonna create more fiat in order to pay a debt? Why don't you just use the gold that you guys have stashed away? But they don't have the gold because they sold that to create allies. And everybody's done it. It's not like everybody hasn't had their hand in the quote unquote black man's pocket. Everybody got something from him. Everybody jacked him. But he wants to pretend like everything's cool.
I mean,
like black people, right? They want to pretend like everything's all right. And that's where that was where we were going to bring that back around with Umar. Because now Umar he's at the thing yelling at people now. Tell them straight, you're the one that sold out your black boys. It's not the system. It's not the system. You did it because you don't want to be responsible. Because you don't want to wake up. Right? Umar Johnson, the psychologist from Philadelphia, that was here a couple weeks ago. Right? So,
but this is what he was saying?
This is what he was saying. Right? Because the black people of Toronto painted themselves as victims. That we have all these problems here, that we can't handle. Right? So they brought the psychologist to come and tell them, and it wasn't even that. He had even things like consenting. Literally tell you, are you an idiot? You're gonna consent to somebody that you don't know to give your child a test to see if they have some type of disorder, and you don't know them, and you're gonna say, yeah. No wonder youths are running away from home and stuff like that.
I can see that.
No wonder they have antisocial issues.
Yeah, I get that. I can see that. But I can only see it on a community and the society level for us, among us. I'm not talking about the larger or the other society. Because I don't think for individual people that we can expect them to, with a few, but most of them, we can expect them to take that level of responsibility at this level.
Well,
but I think as a group, because we start so many organizations and they fall apart and all that. So we, as a group, it's everything. It's everything. Even with in terms of caravan and the money we bring in, and we don't even have a place to live without going to somebody to get to rent it.
Yeah.
And most of the times when you rent it to wonder who you really are renting from.
That's
a question that I've been asking in some things I've seen. You know, so I think as so we have really got to. That guy's right. We got to confront ourselves.
Yeah.
I agree.
I was going to ask you, because I want to talk to you after this session.
No, 9. Yeah, right. But you know, it goes back to the thing. Why are these things happening? Because the prophet came in 1913, right? Just like Dr. Ben said, told these people that they're Moors, but they don't want to accept it.
I think I still have done that.
That's the reality. Because every single school of thought that we claim is for our liberation started somewhere between 1910 and 1933. And the only one standing today is the one from 1913, right? The one from 1912, UNIA, and the Nation of Islam. Everything else is new.
Well, see, that's not the point that I disagree with. The point that I disagree with is that some people really don't know. And I came here by default. Was with Nick.
Yeah.
And I was talking about meetings, and I said, well, when everybody having something, and he told me that you were going to be having a meeting, you said you said you wanted to work on something like this. I said, well, when they have an intent to go, but I thought it was going to be like the meeting that we had in Scarborough.
Yeah.
You know, the place in Scarborough.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was this, so I learned about this, and not because I came and with knowledge about the fact that I'm a Moor. I didn't know that then. So I think there are a lot of people out there who are not that. So that's my only point.
Right.
Who will willingly once they understand.
Yeah. See,
So
that's the thing though. Once they understand is the problem. Because you know, at this point, you know, we don't once they understand was 1913. Because Noble Drew Ali said back then, if you don't do anything else, just declare nationality.
Well, but I didn't even know there was a nationality to declare. At that point.
Yeah, but
and
I'm
even
saying
when I
prior.
came, you know how much I struggled with you around the thing of black because because of my age, I went through the whole thing.
Yes, no, for sure.
With Black Pride and how like we were shining and it was really great and all that. But I didn't quite connect also the entitlement to the land and what it meant to be in war. So I think they have to process that a little bit. So I can't blame my sisters and some of them, yes, but not all of them. I can't.
It's not blame. It's just we need to look at the we just look at the nastiness that we've become. that we're trying to push as no, everything's all right, you know. There you are, leeches on your face and sores and blisters, and you want to come talk to people, shake hands and stuff. You know what I mean? Zombie, right? You know.
A lot of people, and on an individual basis, come to the class. Look at the young brother, the Haitian brother was here 2-3 weeks ago. Excuse me, we were having the same type of discussion with him because he was saying, well, everybody is valid. All the different organizations have value. And we were explaining to him that no, they don't have value because the leaders of these organizations already know the truth. They know about nationality. They know about what we should be doing, and they're teaching the people not to do that. And so he came, he argued with us for a long, long time. I left you guys arguing on the street, but he hasn't come back since, And so a lot of the times when you don't know, it's one thing. Like you said, you came by default. I came we're all this, destined to come here. It's exactly. It's all ordained for us to come here eventually.
Yeah,
But
I think that.
when you've come and you still, the problem with a lot of our people is, and the prophet said the same thing too. Basically, we're stiff-necked people. We are stiff-necked people. You will come to the class, you'll listen to what we have to say or what's being said in the class and the different lectures and all the different literature, and you'll read it, and you just don't want to agree because you want to be right, even though you're wrong. And that's the problem right there. You're wrong, and everything you're doing is not leading you any place positive. It's not. The same thing that Graham Sheik was just talking about, where we had Umar Johnson come up to try to do something for the black people up here. And to save the black youth. You can't save black youth. If they're black, they can't be saved. That's the bottom line. And as long as we keep talking about how black we are, we're never going to be saved.
Exactly.
Because we've been black now for how long?
Right.
And we ain't saved yet.
Not yet. We could be saved, but we don't want that.
Did he talk then about Moorish heritage?
Who's that?
The fellow who came up, Mr. Holmes.
He didn't speak about Moorish heritage, but he talked more science. Right? He talked about, raising your vibrations and changing the frequency of these young people.
Mm-hmm.
Taking notes at every, when you go to a meeting.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Making sure that you take notes, stop doing stuff by memory, because, your memory is not that good and all that type of stuff, But again, it's like, certain people get the pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Dr. Ben gets the pass. He could have called this book, African Moors of the Nile, but he said black man because, he's trying to get attention of certain people that's on a certain mind frame.
Mm-hmm.
Draw your attention with the cover, and then when you start reading, then you get really what it's about.
Moors,
right?
Moors
And Moors in the whole book. Black man of the Nile and his family. Because it's something like we have to look at the reason why we don't know as a problem. The fact that like you're saying, well, I came by default. Like if this guy never told me about these classes, I wouldn't be here. And I'm glad that I came to it.
I think I was late. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, the fact that we didn't know about it prior is a problem.
Yes,
that's right.
That is a problem because it's impossible to even know. Like you could even ask a black person about, Moors, and they'll say, yeah, 711. Oh, you mean the Moors from 711 to 1492 in Spain?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know who Noble Drew is?
Mm-hmm.
But you know about those 800 years? But you don't know about Noble Drew. Like, it doesn't equate that there's no connection there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like if you're talking about, Christianity, and Constantine doesn't come up, right?
But that's part of it right there. If you talk to some Christians, Constantine ain't going to come
coming up.
And they're going to not know who Constantine was,
right.
What he has to do with Christianity, but they're going to know about Jesus. And the same thing has to do with this, what we're talking about here and now. The fact that we didn't know who Noble Drew Ali was, I didn't know who he was till a couple of years ago. But I knew about Marcus Garvey, and I knew about Elijah Poole and all these other people. So the fact that we didn't know, even though he is our prophet, and he was just here the other day, right? And he was the one that taught all of these other people, the fact that we don't know, that we didn't know, that it was deliberately suppressed for us not to know. And those black leaders who do know are trying their best to make sure we don't know. That's the problem. That's the problem right there.
I figured that out too.
And exactly, it takes time to figure it out because like we said, first we realize, oh wait, this is a problem that I didn't know. Then you have to come to realize that, well, what's the source of this problem, and ultimately, you realize, like you said, he was here yesterday. He taught all these people, so there's no point in going beyond those people and trying to put fingers at Caucasians or Asians or anybody else when the most crucial thing was knowing this stuff. And there's people who knew this stuff and then took the small bits and more insignificant pieces and perpetuated those and marketed those, right? Oh, we wear bow ties. Oh, we say ashe, and we're Muslims, but that's it.
But it
And
goes further though,
right? And so that thing, it goes further, because the thing is,
because they
you have to ask
deliberately suppress the knowledge about Noble Jew Ali.
Noble Jew Ali.
It would be something different if it was an oversight or something. But when it's a deliberate suppression of this information, because this is our salvation we're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And so,
that's the problem.
Right. So when you talk about saving black youth, yeah, you can't save black youth, but young Moors, they need to know this stuff, and it goes beyond what level people are at. Different people are at. It's as far as youth, the youth are at the level they need to be at. All the youth are ready, because they haven't been bogged down by the foolishness yet. So they all need it.
The younger the better.
The younger the better. And then as time goes on, for the adults who, if you came in, you're meant to come in, and if you didn't come in, like we talked about a couple weekends ago about the counterfeit spirits, right? And so we have to take a deep analysis on that too, because the whole concept, like, that's why Jolly came and taught you're Moors, you're not Negro, black, and colored, because there's going to be people who are going to be Negro, black, and colored until the day they die, and until the world, until there's no more Negro, black, and colored. And so they have to make a distinction and say, well, if they literally want to be that, and I know that I'm a Moor, then I cannot no longer be them. I can't be related to them. And then if you really think about it, we never really were related to them spiritually. That's why it's a divine and national movement, because those are different spirits. Those are different entities. And even physically, there are groups of we call them Moors because they're dark skinned, who were in Europe doing barbarous things, and had dark skin, but they didn't really look the way most of us look, and their behavior was different, right? And that's documented stuff, right? And so when Europeans meet us now, they know that there's a distinction, but instead of going along with that, for the past 100 years, what's happened is all of that barbarism that they knew from about 1,500 years ago and more, which they inherited as well, partly, they attribute and try to recreate in civilized people, and mix with other uncivilized people, and just try to create a bigger problem for us, when Negroes, blacks, and colors are not our problem. We separated from those people thousands of years ago, right? And now they're coming back in all different forms, in all shades of skin tone, all tones, all colors. And the concept is to not associate with those people. Teach them, and then the ones who you taught them, and then they're still looking like, like there's something complicated to process, and it's not complicated. Just start to take a few steps back, because they don't mean you any good. They're not like in their own heads, they're looking at you like, okay, how can I stab this person in the back? We think, nah, man, they look like my brothers, my sisters, and they're just not getting it. No, like, some of them are just not getting it, but some of them literally don't mean us any good.
Absolutely.
That's why the old sheik said, see those Moors over there? Take them, let them help you build up this nation. because they're not gonna amount to nothing. They're
And-
just counterfeit spirits, just walking around.
Yep.
Zombies.
And
Just
some
like
Africans
today.
from the continent know this. They know that truth. And so sometimes when you meet them here and you start talking about my brother, this and that, and sometimes your openness to greet them kind of puts them aback. They're kind of set aback by it, if you ever notice. And that's because they know, like, it's, first of all, there's tribalism. Second of all, there's like Brother Shifter saying there's two blacks.
Yeah.
And there's two Negroes originally, right? Not two Negroes, but there's two original people, two groups, and it wasn't two groups racially or two groups by color. It's just two groups spiritually, right? And then one group was less civilized and less cultured, and one group was Moors and remained stuck to their Moorish heritage, right?
Like one group was dumb and went to the Caucasus Mountains and lost their pigmentation because they didn't know how to get back home. Right? And one founded civilizations on the planet.
You never know it today.
You know,
But
not the way these Negroes be acting.
right? Negroes, and a lot of them, like I said, are still Negroes, still look like you and me. So you
They
gotta
are on a different frequency.
totally different frequency. So we have to be like serious, cautious. This is
Yeah,
serious
so-
information, right? But at the same time, it's like you need to know, and it helps you to progress, because you don't want to get stuck at that level where now you know it, and then you get you understand it to a certain degree, but then you become frustrated because other people aren't understanding it, and you feel like that's holding you back. You can't let that hold you back. You are who you are. You can't let someone, like, you can't force civilization on someone who's uncivilized either. Just like you can't force an uncivilized concept on a civilized world, right? Like you can't force civilization on a savage. And the savages walking around in clothes and even suits and tie and everything.
Yeah.
But they're savages. Dark skin, yellow skin, I don't care. Brown skin, red skin, all different color skins. But they're savages. Leave them alone.
But I look forward to you indicated about the business meeting.
Yes.
To when we have a place where we can get things together ourselves, and we can have our own meetings. Like I was reading the book, and then I was straight.
No, sorry. Never straight.
But I was reading this book, Tampa Baby,
Yeah.
and it's about this one, a part of the Black Panthers, and I was looking at how they had organized the community and what we can learn from that. And so we get ourselves set up and reach out to like our people and so. I think also more people will become more curious and find out more about them. And I'm sure that this happened also with the Panthers, all that was a different kind of setup.
But build it and they will come. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that would be a large part of it anyway. But I think as we build ourselves, that we will grow and we will strengthen.
Yeah.
We will, go deeper in terms of what we are all about.
Right.
And I'm sure that a lot of people will be drawn because there are a lot of people that I know that I went to school with and in my family that
Yeah.
I still haven't been able to even talk to properly.
Yeah. But that's just the reality of it. Like Noble Drew Ali, just what you said. Noble Drew Ali said that in 1913.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the doors open.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm gonna drive them in.
Mm-hmm.
Don't shut the doors. I don't care if nobody's coming. Just leave the doors open. Because when time comes,
They will come.
they better,
They will
right?
agree.
They better, because they don't have options really, right? They're getting a pass because they're still able to use the people as economic base. They haven't squeezed everything out of the people yet. They still have lots of rings left to get everything out, right? It's not a that vulture, that carcass still has some meat on it.
You know, right?
Oh,
And then
Yeah, sure.
Can you touch a little bit more on the two groups of people and the origin of that group, or just how you
oh well, the two
you said that there's two groups of high frequency and low frequency.
right
I'm guessing that's like from creation, or
from not from creation, from some point during the history of humanity where certain group got destabilized and started doing things off mark, which is called a sin. Right? Sin. The definition of sin is to be off the mark. Right? So they were missing the mark and they started doing strange things. Right? And then it's documented.
so that's what I'm saying. Do you have like where's this coming from? Like if I had no
Okay.
idea of anything,
For instance,
where
look at
can
old Hindu like paintings and stuff,
Mhm.
and then you see like blue people and green people, and you see women eating fruit, green women and blue women, and then you see men. They show pictures of men like hunting animals,
Mhm.
right? So why is it that if you have a garden full of fruit that you're gonna go hunting all these animals, right? Right? Being off the mark, going and living in a cold climate for whatever reason, right? That's gonna cause you to then have to eat even more, right? Meat, etc. And and when you have a place to live, whatever for whatever reason, maybe they're pushed there, but that wasn't appealing to the physiology of human beings, so they had to just force their body to adapt, right? Many different things, right? Many different things, but like I said, it started spiritually, and spiritually is like the main differentiation that I observed is that how is it that going back even thousands of years you had this king and that king of Sumer and this king of Egypt and male kings ruling over a large mass of people like in a patriarchal using a patriarchal system that's never gonna work. Like it hasn't worked since.
And why? Why do you say it's not?
No, because it hasn't worked since because
The balance.
you need balance, right? And then especially if people start looking different, right? Then if it's men running things and there's different groups of people, then of course you're gonna have wars.
So you're saying balance like you need a man and a woman to run? Is that what you're saying?
feminine and masculine.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just
Sounds right.
I'm
Yeah.
new, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right?
And so as like people may not see it this way, but the West is really like the Western Hemisphere, North America, Americas is for the past few thousand years has more protected that balance of male and female energy. But the East, you see empires of people of this king and he ruled over 3/4 of the world, and that king, and then after that was another king ruling over a large portion of the world, right? So those spirits were there, can be documented as being there. Those counterfeit spirits, right? And then those counterfeit spirits made their way over here as well, right? But less so over here. And so when we teach that we're Moors and that we're from here, right? It's even doubly important now that you understand that concept, right? Because you don't want to go somewhere where if the daughter's born, they kill her or they sell her. You don't want to live somewhere where, you know what I mean? They chastise the woman if she's raped. Like, that's not civil. That's not civilized.
Can I just say a little something in regard to the sister's question about you asked about the two different types? And I think because many of us come from the Christian background per se, you can just look at our Bible stories. I believe that they were meant as allegories. They were meant as parables. They weren't literal. And when they're talking about Adam and Eve, you know, they and Cain and Abel. So from the very beginning, you had the one that slew the other type of thing. And I don't think that they were real people in the way that, you know, they were real people literally. They were symbols of this type of energy. That's what I mean. Everybody can believe what they want to believe still, but I believe that when you have to look at the Bible, because we all kind of have some familiarity with the Bible as opposed to maybe other books. And it's when we were children, we were taught catechism and stories from the Bible and so on, and we were taught that's the gospel, that's the way it is, and that's the law, and that's God's word, etc. But as we get older, we begin to understand that this don't quite make sense to me. And it's very, you're talking about the energies you're talking about, first there was the male man, and then in order to get the woman, which part of the man did they take? Every, you know what I mean? It's automatically demoting this woman and subjugating this woman from the get-go, from the creation, basically. You know what I mean? So how do you go from that position as a woman? You know what I mean? And how can you recommend that type of a system? But that's what, when you look through the Bible, and I'm no big Bible buff, but from what I do know about the Bible, that's what it's full of. It's full of the subjugation of females, and to me, that's the subjugation of the female energy. And if you don't have a balance between the two energies, that's when you have a whole lot of trouble. Yeah.
It's also interpretation, right? Because I mean, I never felt raised in a Christian home or whatever, and actually like mixture. That's what I chose to do. My home wasn't all the way that, and I never felt that way. It was more doctrine, like pastors' doctrine. It's more the different doctrines that their different denominations had. When I actually read the scripture for myself, I didn't feel that way. I felt empowered because certain things, like there's neither male or female in Messiah. Like there's certain things said that I don't know, it doesn't make you feel less. I feel equal to a man. I don't see this where, women were prophets. Women, the first judge of Israel was a woman, a judge and a prophet. That's like in the order of Melchizedek. You don't see that. After her was Messiah. So right there, I mean, I've had to fight for women's rights in the churches because it's like you don't see that. Everybody sees like women have to be quiet, and you're like, no, read the scripture. The first person to rule over the nation as a judge and a prophet was a woman, first and only, and no one ever did it like that. So how, if Mosai doesn't have a problem with it, why should he?
Right.
So I mean, that's kind of how I take those things, and it doesn't watch to say, you're a woman, I'm not going to give you that gift. And no, it doesn't. It just gives gifts to people, however. So I don't see that bias, so to speak. I just never felt it. Other people may have. If you listen to them, people preaching, you probably feel down or whatever. I never feel that.
But the importance too is like, as powerful as religion is, the official organization of human beings is into families of nations. So really, you're like the status of whatever you are, and how you're going to be able to fight for that status or uphold that status depends on the national laws and regulations and customs. The religious ones, unless they're tied closely with the national ones, are secondary, right? So, there are nations that have certain, things that they do, right? Based on allowing counterfeit spirits to take over, right? So that's why it's like, no matter how much progress there is, if there's counterfeit spirits who call themselves Negro, Black, and Colored, who are going to be our so-called leaders, then like how can you advance? You can't advance if women aren't advancing.
Right.
Straight. Yeah.
right? So it's like there's no point in going anywhere if the counterfeit spirits aren't, you know what I mean, identified, and that distinction is made to say, okay,
Ousted.
yeah, that's them, this is us.
That's what Noble Dwelling is doing. Making a clear distinction between who the rightful heirs are and who the stateless people are. Because even to today, they still call themselves Negro Black Color. Even though since 1913 he was saying you're not Negro Black Color, he still said after he said that, yeah, we're the United Negro Improvement Association and Negro Advancement for Colored People, and like
Yeah, that's just a lack of, because for me, like, really, it's only, I mean, I heard something about Moors in Spain long ago, and then I saw some pictures, oh, it's pretty cool, you know what I mean? I didn't know, I thought it was really like like almost like a religion or something. I didn't think it was like that, it was about dark skinned people,
Yeah.
right? I didn't know that, and it's until meeting you guys that I'm hearing like a different side of it,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking like I'm just one person in this whole big world. How many other people? And I'm a steady kind of girl.
Yeah.
How many other people just don't know?
It's spirit, it's quality of spirit. Like your spirit, whatever you came in to be in this life, you were already meant to come and meet this information properly, right? It happened to be, you know, with us, but it was gonna happen. It was bound to happen, right? So, like, it's only like the prophet says, your activity in this movement can only go in one direction. So, if somebody, you know, is shown this stuff and they don't seem to be gaining at it and progressing and being interested, it's like they're not really part of the movement because they're not, you know what I mean? It can only go in one direction. So, yeah, like I know what you mean.
So what
And
is,
your point is well taken too.
what is the movement?
Well,
That's if you could define.
right, so the movement,
What is the gospel? Right?
okay.
So it's like, what is the movement?
So the
Is
mo-
this, yeah.
So the movement is to uplift fallen humanity,
Okay.
right? And fallen humanity is represented in our one-on-one questionnaires as, you know, a woman with humanity written on her womb, and she's asleep. And Drew Ali is holding her, 1 foot on water, one on land, and in the water is written the cares of the world, and on land is written salvation. Right? So we teach civics, we teach birthrights and nationality in order to reestablish this Moorish nation, which is in the Americas, to establish that within that realm of nations and families of nations, where, you know, women can be uplifted and do whatever movement they want to do, right? So a little history on that and this is from Malcolm X, A Life of Reinvention, Manning Marable, and the recent Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz biography. By the early 20th century, the first significant religious organization in the United States that identified itself as Islamic was the Moorish Science Temple of America. The group's founder, a North Carolina-born African-American named Timothy Drew, established the cult in Newark, New Jersey in 1913 as the Canaanite Temple. Proclaiming himself Noble Drew Ali, he told followers that he was the second prophet of Islam, Mahdi, or Redeemer. In Orthodox Islam, Muhammad is widely described as the seal of the prophets, the last of a line of Quranic prophets beginning with Adam. Any such claim to the status of prophet is inherently blasphemous, but Ali's deviation from Islam's 5 pillars didn't stop there. The sacred text of his cult was the Holy Quran, also known as the Circle 7 Quran, a 64-page synthesis that drew on 4 sources: the Quran, the Bible, the Aquarian Gospels of Jesus Christ, an occult version of the New Testament, and Unto Thee I Grant, a publication of the Rosicrucian Brotherhood, a Masonic order influenced by the Egyptian mystery schools. Noble Drew Ali's major appeal to black Americans paralleled Blyden's arguments. He claimed that Islam was a spiritual home for all Asiatics, a term that embraced Arabs, Egyptians, Chinese, Japanese, black Americans, as well as several other ethnicities and nationalities. African Americans were not Negroes at all, Ali insisted, but an olive-skinned Asiatic people who were the descendants of Moroccans. Members consequently acquired Islamic names as well as identities as Asiatic blacks or Moroccans. The Moorish Science Temple preached that blacks' authentic religion was Islam. Their national identity was not American, but Moorish, and their genealogy extended back to Christ. Ali's strange quasi-Masonic creed attracted hundreds of followers in Newark, chiefly drawn from illiterate sharecroppers and landless workers who had trekked from the rural South during the initial wave of the Great Migration. By the late 1920s, the Moorish Science Temple claimed 30,000 members, with temples in Philadelphia, Baltimore, Richmond, Petersburg, Virginia, Cleveland, Youngstown, Ohio, Lansing, Chicago, and Milwaukee, among others. Ali's awareness of Orthodox Islam's core tenets was sketchy at best. He demanded that followers adhere to many of Islam's dietary laws. The eating of pork was forbidden. There was some overlap between the Temple people and Garveyism, but the two movements differed in fundamental ways. The Moorish Science Temple was essentially a cult, while the Universal Negro Improvement Association was a popular movement with many different local leaders. However, the UNIA fragmented. Some of its former members joined the temple or began to influence it. In March 1929, Ali was arrested on suspicion of murdering an opposition leader, Sheikh Claude Green. Released on bail, he died mysteriously several months later. His movement almost immediately split into feuding factions. The two major groups were led respectively by Ali's former chauffeur, John Gibbons L., who announced he was the reincarnation of Ali, and by Kirkman Bey, Grand Sheikh and president of the Moorish Science Temple Corporation. And it goes on a little bit. But so basically, this person's, the author's understanding wasn't as in-depth as it could be, or as the truth really is. But that was a brief little synopsis that he had there. That Timothy Drew Ali, right, that Noble Drew Ali, born Timothy Drew, established the temple, right, Newark, New Jersey, 1913, Old Canaanite Temple.
So he has his dates right.
Yeah, he got his dates right.
And he has what was first right.
Right.
Because you ask some Moors and they'll tell you Moorish Science Temple from 1913. And not even mention Old Canaanite Temple out of their mouth.
Because he says he's the first. By the early 20th century, the first significant religious organization in the United States that identified itself as Islamic was the Moorish Science Temple of America.
The first.
Right.
Well, the only thing, I understand all that, but I heard that you mentioned a little part on there that it was a quasi-Masonic creed. And to me, first of all, when we talk about the Masons got their stuff from us. Right. That's number one. So anytime you're reading, I read a lot more critically now than I ever have before, honestly, because you in the past I might have read that and I skipped right over it, no problem. You know what I mean? But what he's saying here, when he says quasi-Masonic, is that the Moors were patterning their thing off of the Masons. And so I have a problem with that right there. Right. And that's the thing about reading nowadays is that, reading anytime, but reading is, you don't read the same. Your eyes are open a little bit more each time you read anything at all, because everybody, if I write something and you write something and we're both Moors, there's still going to be a little twist from your perspective and a little twist from mine. So other people write their stuff, and as you know, we keep saying in meetings all the time, we have to be reading Moorish stuff, and we have to read stuff and we have to be writing our own stuff as well, you know, because other people are going to write about the Moors and they might get some of it right. Yeah, but there's going to be some. There's going to be it's going to be colored by their view and their interpretation of things, and that's not a good thing to me, you know.
Sometimes manipulating, but it's not. It's still
And it's the little things because they're insidious. Because I'm sure that's not the only dig in the book. That's a pretty thick book. Yeah. And if you go through it piece by piece, which I haven't done, but there's probably a lot more. And so, you read the book, and by the time you get to the end, you have a certain, you come away with a certain feeling about the book based on its entirety, right? And because of all of these things, and I believe that a lot of the times, some of this stuff, maybe sometimes it's just the way the person writes, but a lot of the times I believe it's deliberate.
Yeah, and then the beauty is though is like when you have this, especially Moorish knowledge and information, you have such a clear cut like understanding of things, such that when you read this, regardless of how biased it is, they end up it's like that person, the author, ends up showing their hand, right? It doesn't matter how skewed their hand is; they show their hand to you because you have the ability to see at that angle.
Exactly.
Right. So it's then you could take away things that they didn't even mean to reveal. Right.
Yeah.
It's like he says, "Unto thee I grant." I didn't know that was part of what Drew Ali used. You know what I mean? Because it says, okay, out of the 4 books that the Circle 7 was comprised of, there's the Aquarian Gospels of Jesus Christ, the Quran, the Holy Bible, and Unto Thee I Grant. And it says a publication of the Rosicrucian Brotherhood, a Masonic order influenced by the Egyptian mystery schools. And we say that the Moors are custodians of the ancient Egyptian mystery knowledge. So it's in line because it has to be in line. It can't be so out of line that it's not, the whole book becomes invalid, right? So the validity there is visible to those who know, right? And so all the skewed stuff, you could just throw it out the window more or less. But it's like he did his research and figured out, well, maybe probably no other Moor did the research, but he figured out that Unto Thee I Grant, right, which is that the publication from the Rosicrucian Brotherhood was part of the Circle 7, right? Because we know that Noble Drew Ali did his research and studies and put together a book that was comprised of different literature, right? And it says that on the cover. So he didn't lie or anything. He said, compiled by myself, Noble Drew Ali, right? And so that's expressed. And then what he got it from, okay, we know that he used the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ, right, which was this hidden book that emerged later on. We know he used the Holy Bible and the Quran, but then now, this guy did a little bit of research himself, and for me anyway, I realized, okay, he used Unto Thee I Grant. So then I can go and research that book now and see what else is in that wasn't put into the Circle 7, and so that's how Moors do, piece things together.
Another thing too, with the names of the books, right? People who are gonna want to try to get you off the path of Noble Drew Ali are gonna say, well, the Circle 7 came from Unto Thee I Grant and whatever, and this book and this book. But they're not gonna go further and say, okay, well, where'd they get it from?
Right.
But they got it from the Egyptian
mysteries.
Who were the Nubians, who Dr. Ben said were the Moors.
Right. So just taking back that those things of your ancient foremothers and forefathers, right? Regardless of what other people have to say about it.
Everything would stem back to Egypt, right? So just help me understand the Islam part of it, because being here in the West, Islam to me is Islam, what Islam means to any person who doesn't know anything, right? So if you have in that book, you have the Bible, you have the Quran, you have the resurrections, you have the Aquarian Gospel, which they all have their sects or whatever.
Right.
People, if you trace everything back, okay, I don't know if it's true, but it's out there that a lot of things in the Bible all stem back from Egypt. They're all stories, whatever. And then you have that or Ethiopia, right? So you have that knowledge out there. So if everything stems back to Egypt, why say Islam? Why not just say hey, we're just Egyptologists, or we're just I don't know, why stop at Islam, which is something from my knowledge, and I think the regular people too came after Christianity.
Okay, so
what we know of Islam, right? So what is Islam before?
I'm glad you raised that because I've had that same issue, but really fully resolved.
Because Islam,
because I have no, my understanding is that the Moors preceded, like they dealt with Constitution and
Yeah,
all that,
yeah.
preceded Nobel Ali, and I have no indication, I don't know, I haven't seen any documentations, I don't know either way,
Yeah.
but it's, I have no indication that they were actually, adhering to Islam as such. Maybe the principles
Yeah,
in a
because
general way,
but again, it comes back to what is
This
Islam,
is there.
right?
So, yeah.
So Islam to Moors is Isof law and master, right? So Isof law and master really is know thyself, and know thyself was at the top of all the pyramids before you went in there to go learn. So
they would say that before
before you went there to go to learn,
okay,
right?
yes,
Okay, and then the Moors were the custodians of the Egyptian culture, right? So what the Moors adopted from the Egyptians was know thyself, right?
So,
And they phrased it Islam for that time frame when they had it, because you're not gonna call it what those guys call it if they're falling out of power.
so my question would be, the Moors then didn't speak English.
Oh, for sure,
So
most
it
definitely.
could. So then, what would it could Ida? What did you say?
Islam.
Yeah, but that thing there, those are like English words, like I, self law, all of
No,
that.
that's Noble Jualito.
No, that's okay. So good. So that's Noble. So it helped me, right?
Yeah.
So that's Noble Juali kind of gave it those.
Noble Juali
Broke it down.
recalibrated
Okay.
Islam for the Moors,
Okay.
because the Islam that was out there
No.
wasn't for us to deal with.
Right.
But we couldn't say Islam, right?
Yeah.
Because during that time, not only were the Christian ministers fighting the Prophet, but there was Muslim
Yeah.
ministers or imams
Mhm.
that were saying that the Prophet is a fraud and he's calling himself the Prophet when Muhammad's the only Prophet, and they wanted to,
Yeah.
what's the thing called?
Fatwa.
Fatwa.
Mhm.
They wanted to put a fatwa on Noble Juali, right? To shut him up.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do that because they didn't have any jurisdiction,
Yeah.
because this is not Islam.
Yeah.
This is Isof law master.
Mhm.
and I think that maybe some of the confusion comes with the name Islam, because Islam has such a like there is a whole mental conception of what it is in terms of being Islamic, that's apart from what Nabi Ali conceived.
Yeah.
So it gets mixed, like in terms of what the.
But it gets
And
mixed.
also, that's one of the things that like it will be a problem in terms of some people, following Nabi Ali in
But
terms of understanding, like it comes to, the need to, study and learn more.
But remember what
But
the guy
initially-
was saying, right? That the temple is for Arabs and Chinese and Turks and Black Americans and everybody, because ultimately everybody is Muslim. What we would say Muslim, because everybody has to submit to the will of the Creator. I don't care who you are, you have to do that, and that's the definition of Muslim, one who submits to the will of Allah.
Because that's what they'll tell you when you ask them, right? But then you know that there's 7 Elohim, right? Well, the 7 Elohim are the Hermetic principles, right? So there's the law of attraction. There's mentalism, dualism, right? Gender, rhythm, polarity, and vibration. So the 7 principles. The universe doesn't exist or exhibit anything outside of those 7. So how are you, as a flesh and blood person, going to try to exist out of those 7, defy those 7 angels? You can't. So who are these people saying that because of the things that they do or their association, that makes them a Muslim? It's like because I have a blue baseball hat on today, I'm a guy. No, like I'm a guy because I'm a guy. Right? It's not the cap.
Yeah, just at the end of the day,
Right.
all of these names and titles, I'm not gonna, to be honest with you. Like,
Well,
because like I could say if I were a Christian, I could say everybody's a Christian because according to my belief, like everybody from before the world was even made, like everybody's a Messiah, like in this whole, I could just go into that whole thing. Who cares if anybody even believes it anyways? But I'm just saying like right now, this is like your belief, right? Which you have the right, and I say your because you obviously this is your belief. So from your belief system,
this is not a belief.
your knowledge.
That's
I'm using the best words that I know to communicate.
But that's why because you said belief, right?
For your knowledge.
Right. So
I don't know what
talk about faith.
Your faith, your faith, right? So this is your faith, right? You're gonna say like everybody's Muslim, and you understand what you mean by that. But if you have, like you said, if you have some person out there that's like, I'm not a Moor, I'm a Negro, like, well,
Okay, well,
how does that work? If
then
someone's gonna say
more
like,
than likely, you're a counterfeit spirit, and you deserve to stay where you're at.
yeah,
Right.
so that's what I'm saying. So like, if someone doesn't have that understanding that you have, to say like, yeah, I'm a Muslim, because I don't like when I say honestly, like with titles, I really don't read titles much. I really don't read. Things have changed so much, like in all these years. I really don't know. Like I'm hearing this for the first time. So like I said, I'm a study person. I'll go back to my study, my research, read stuff, whatever. Maybe I'll come to the understanding that.
You mentioned faith, right?
Yeah.
Like we say that there's 3 steps, a 3-step ladder, or there's 3 chambers. The first is belief, the second is faith, and the third is fruition. Belief is what man thinks perhaps is true, right? So that means there might be somebody walking the dog outside. I believe that if I go outside right now, there'll be somebody walking the dog. That's belief. Faith is what man knows, right, is true, right, based on experience or observation, right? So I know that it rained today. I was outside. I felt the raindrops. I know it rained. Fruition is the third. You make it rain, right? Or it's putting your knowledge into action. And Drew Ali put his knowledge into action, and he had thousands and thousands of adherents, right? And he brought us something that is accurate, that was actually effective and is still effective, right? And he made prophecies, all of which came true when they were supposed to come true, whether it was about him calculating things or not, right? Because they say 99% of prophecy is knowing the possible outcomes, all the possible outcomes, and all of their probabilities of happening. We're not pretending that that's not mostly what it is, okay? So when we talk about this is our faith, well, it's our fruition. Like we already stood on the level of faith, and we're doing beyond faith now, you see? And so when you're doing beyond faith and you're doing fruition, you're right, titles don't matter. But then that's the point. They don't matter. So if Drew Ali came and brought things into fruition using certain terms and things, we researched those for sure, but on doing the research, knowing that word sound is power, and when you put something into the ethers, it comes back, that as long as someone put a positive intent on those words and those terms, right, and you're linking yourself to that, then spiritually, etherically, it's all good. You're gonna, right? You understand what I'm saying? So that's how it is, right? It's like,
this is why there's only 5 people in here,
right?
Because you gravitated.
There's 6 people in here.
Right?
Not 2 people.
Well, yeah. Right? You gravitated to be here. Like the people who are online on this. There's not like 500. Like you say, yeah, just do it online, and now you have access to 1 million people. No, there's probably like 20 people online right now.
We know.
You know what I mean? that we
19 of
know.
them.
Islam.
If I ask you, yo, these are peace Islam, bro.
Right? Like it's like we you know what I mean? Right? Just because you know we know that we're not gonna get it. We're not gonna get everybody. You know what I mean? But the ones that do come, those are the ones that you know what I mean.
Like what you said and how you answered that, that's I understand. I get that's what you actually praise me time. You just answered the question.
Yeah. Sure. Because until we become psychic, we have to use words. And then if you know the science of words, it's what's behind the intent of your words makes it happen. And then if you're taking in other people's words, it's what's behind the intent of their words.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think
we know Drew Ali's intent was
and that's learning something different because for me and I think for the majority of other people in this day and age that we live in, the only thing for a lot of people is the negative things associated with those words. Yeah. Being real.
Yeah.
Like which words? Like Islam, even Allah. Okay? So
not everybody, but a lot.
No. But
People outside of it.
like you have, but I mean, you know, the Western world and other people, man, a lot of people. You know what I mean? It's just they hear that there's like a feeling, an initial. You know what I mean? Because they don't have that. I was talking to my mother-in-law today, and I was telling her, I didn't even remember it was Monday. I was just so, I was like, it's Monday today. Don't you have that class? And I was like, oh, okay. And I was saying, Allah, it's like, they don't believe Allah, like, the regular. I had to do the whole breakdown, like the regular, like, it's like arm, leg, arm, head. Like, she's like, what? And so this was like new for her. She just went back. She's like, that is so funny. Like, I'm Muslim, something with molecule and something. I remember. Yeah. You know what I mean? But like, so she's just like, I never heard. It was just to like shake her that there is something different out there to do.
Yeah, sure.
And then real brief too.
Most people don't know anything.
Most people don't know currently, right? But then like, humanity has been going on for how many years, right? Mm-hmm. And so those positive connotations and the more spiritual the connotations that come from Drew Ali and from our standpoint, those were used from before Prophet Muhammad, right? Allat, A-L-L-A-T, being a woman, and a feminine principle, and the 5 pointed star, love, truth, peace, freedom, justice. Like those were ancient. So all those people that use them passed down in the spirit realm, like their energy links with our energy as well. So it's not just the people who are alive. If we focus on the people who are alive, like we'll be lost because the spirit world is running things right now. Spirit runs things right now. Right? Especially in these times. Right?
You just said the feminine principle. I was reading here and it was saying, it stood up to me. It said, Allah, the Father of the universe. Yeah. The Father. When I hear you guys speak, sometimes you refer to she. Yeah. When you say Allah, do you want to can you touch on why, like she, he? For me, there's neither male nor female.
One, right?
And
so since the language,
both in the sense that encompassing both father, mother, feminine, and masculine characteristics, right? However we put it. So, but here you're saying she, then here it's he, or father, and then you're saying feminine. So, what is that like? Because if I came here, like the last time I came, I heard a lot of she talking about Allah, and then now I'm reading this and I'm seeing father. So, do you guys say Father Allah? Do you go like how this is, or what is it? Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know, it's probably made a big.
We go with that as we've learned it, right? And then we've interpreted it, and we, based on personal preference, we modify that interpretation, which is like just a smaller word, right? He or she, which doesn't really have that relevance on that level, on the level of a supreme, all-encompassing oneness.
So if you're gonna refer to Allah to someone out there, are you gonna say he or she, or just not he or she?
Depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we could give somebody that, and then they say, oh, okay, I could get down with that because their top father is whatever, right?
Majority, right?
But then when they come in, then they get brought up to date that when we say father, we're really talking about feminine, because father is an action word, coming from pater, which is paternity, which is feminine. So if father is feminine, then what's mother?
I think that it's just
Right,
more
like-
redefining what is feminine masculine anyways. It's like words, just understanding words.
Yeah, it's a oneness.
Yeah,
You know,
it is.
it's just a oneness.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a oneness.
What
Yeah,
made
that's-
us been trying to say something?
I just wanted to address again and reinforce what Grand Chief has been saying all this time about reading Moorish literature. So just to sort of break it down a little, if I want to learn chemistry, I'm not going to go and try to learn it from a music teacher.
Right.
Because I ain't going to get chemistry, I'm going to get something else, but it ain't going to be chemistry.
Music
And,
chemistry.
well, there you go. And the same thing applies for what we study. And we reference a lot of different authors and a lot of different books, and that's good. Brother Tesla said something to the fact that if you're conscious and you've already been studying and so on and so forth, then you'll be able to read the book and take what's from the book that you should be taken from the book and recognize the other stuff, etc. The only danger in that is that not everybody is going to be at that level. And that's why it's really important for them to be focusing on Moorish literature.
Yeah.
Because when you're taking other people who are going to try to tell you about Moors,
The distortions.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's why we come here and decipher, and then we try to write our own literature.
Exactly, and
Or
it's
make
very
references.
important
Yeah,
because
no doubt.
people will come in, and if they're taking that third hand,
Yeah.
idea of what this is all about, they're going to read Tom, Dick, and Harry,
Yeah.
and they're going to say, "Well, no, I don't agree
I
with
don't
this,"
agree with it.
and the
Yeah.
Morris was in Spain, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. But it's really, really important for them to get for us all to get the basics. You know what I mean, and to get it straight from the horse's mouth, as it were.
Yeah. For some people, though, the basics is even more basic to the point where they just might have to read Stanley Lane Fools and Moors in Spain, who I believe he's a European brother, right? And just to know, like, oh, really? There was dark-skinned people in Spain, between people who don't even know that, right? Historically, just the historical background, and so it's like ultimately is to reach is that we cover everything that needs to be covered, and so anything that needs to be covered that hasn't been covered, we're gonna look to
Be covered.
to cover it and write our own literature on it, right? Like you said, so that it's there and that it fills up that space with another from our perspective.
Yeah, it's just like how Brother Tar says that Moors are conscious to certain degrees. Right? That's the same thing with the dead people. They're conscious to certain degrees. And there's some dead people that you can say something to them and pull them in right away. Like get their attention. You know what I mean? Like when we do things at schools and stuff like that. Like Illuminati is a trigger thing for young people. You know what I mean? Like they hear that and it's like, you know what I mean? Everybody's heads up, like, you know what I mean? The Illuminati, like, yeah, we're gonna talk about Illuminati today. All right, you know what I mean? I was watching this thing on YouTube, and you know what I'm saying, right? Because certain people are gonna get grabbed depending on where they are, even not knowing, like even people that you might see on the bus, and you're like, why is this guy having a conversation with me? And he's breaking down, this is what happened in my life today, and whatever, because
the spirit.
Something made them gravitate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I actually think that eventually it's going to be so that are going to, they really going to shine. Once they really understand and grasp who we are, they really are going to shine.
It's unavoidable.
And in fact, just in reading about the Black Panthers, and of course they had a lot of youth there, and for their time, that was the thing. But it gave them such pride to know that they had some validity and some strength and some basis for who they are and the power they had as a group working together. And I really feel that that's going to happen also for the Lord. But getting back to Islam and to Islam today, I think we have to keep in mind that Islam is the whole term, and people are being demonized for political So that has confused things greatly.
Right.
Power, control, money, manipulation by people who have been in power and to stay in power and are using anything destructively or any other way to maintain power.
Well, yeah, two things on like first on the youth, like for sure, is on to that. I agree completely. Um, that's why I said like the younger the Cujo said the younger the better to get that information to them because get to a certain point, the age of consent, 18 or whatever, you're responsible for yourself, and if you happen upon something that should be a priority, then in your heart of hearts, I need to put some time into this. Like we all have, right?
And right now there's a lot of books out there, which is good. I mean, they say black, Negro, and all that. People want to have now, but just because of the consciousness in black studies programs,
Right.
we need to get the same level, from birth right up. Books for kids on the boys.
Absolutely.
So that by the time they get to be 10, 11,
Yeah,
they
you
know.
Yeah.
Comic books as well.
Yeah, on every level. And then it's like we need, like Jolie said, we need our own press because heap lies upon us, and then not tell you things too about like the concept of Muslim or Islam being something that people sort of feel a certain way about globally is definitely not at the perspective that we think it is here in the West. Like we're not really being exposed to what's really going on, like how there's Muslims in I don't know what countries, a smaller Lithuania or some country in Eastern Europe, where there's this European dude, he's like a mogul, millionaire, billionaire, and just at this birthday party and give all praises to Allah. He said in his speech, and he's there's Moorish architecture and most of the country's Muslim, and how there's how many millions and millions of Chinese Muslims, and like it's definitely not what most people in the West think.
No, it's such a fast growing religion too.
Growing, and then even and growing when it first came through Muhammad, right? At the time of Muhammad, and that was 1400 years ago. So it was growing fast then, and then like it's still growing fast now. So it's like,
and then if you even too, when you look at, Muhammad is the founder of the uniting of Islam. That's what he really came for.
So then,
right? That's why they booted him out.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to do what Islam is doing right now, right? We're not concerned about, some people call themselves Muslim that strap bomb on themselves and say that they're terrorists. Because obviously those aren't Muslims. Like obviously. So like there's not even, it's not even anything to even bring up when somebody says, because the talk comes up, well, you're a Muslim, then that means you're a terrorist. No, because
people with a brain know
Muslims,
right? Yeah, people with a brain
know
those
That's
that
true.
right?
They're being used.
Right?
That was all.
What? You're right. Why would Muslim be the fastest growing religion if people are following that nonsense there that people are talking, right? And why Mobutu Ali say in 1913, because he was prophesizing that Islam is the fastest growing religion. That get on it right now. I'm telling you, 1913, you want to be Christian, you want to be Buddhist, and you want to be all this stuff. Go back to your ancient forefathers' divine creed. Right? Go back to that.
And I think also that we need to establish those connections as well. The ancient, the origins.
They're all in the Circle 7.
I know, but we need to highlight that for for our people and for our youth.
Right.
Because the perception is that it started later with Muhammad.
And just like the perception is like everything started in Egypt over there when there's a Sphinx in the Grand Canyon that's like probably a million years old.
Right. Yeah. So we have to, yeah.
and
See, I don't have that.
and
I don't
also
have all
too
that yet.
that we are here. You know, like our information base is here. Our information base isn't what they have over there. The information base is what's here. Because with the Moors,
But isn't it connected though?
I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's connected, but
Like if anything,
it's a mirror reflection. Like
Yeah.
it's not like it's only connected because it's a
Yes.
reflection.
as like a colony, like Egypt was a colony of like the empire here. Like okay, let's go, establish a colony. Okay,
Right?
and then
Right? It's like Noble Jolly founded the Old Canaanite Temple, and then changed the Old Canaanite Temple to the Moorish Holy Temple of Science.
Mm.
Like, why didn't we call it the Canaanite Holy Temple of Science? Because Moors and Canaanites are the same people. There's not a separation
Mhm.
between them. It's one people, right? And the last name that we're known as is Moors. So, like in his writing, Moorish leaders' historical message to America, he says the Moors as Mohammedans. Okay, so and then anybody who's ignorant, they're gonna look up Mohammedans, and Mohammedans is gonna say Muslim. Okay, but Noble Jolly is saying that those people are Moors, and then a Moor is any dark-skinned person, especially an African Negro. So it's clear that these people that are called Muslims of the past, or Mohammedans, or Berbers, or whatever they call themselves, that they were Moors.
The original one.
The original ones.
Yeah, because
Right? They were
it's
Moors.
my understanding.
Yes.
Is this your understanding as well? That basically on the planet initially, or initially it was just.
Yeah, because
And then after
we're the first people.
Yes, we were the first people. And then there was the two groups. Once they talked about the people who became because of the Ice Age, whatever. So there are basically other two groups, and then once with the Berbers, the Moors, the Berbers, and all that, as they came and they mixed, we were already there as Berbers. I don't know what we'll call that, but we were there,
Right.
and then they mixed, but they were us initially, right?
Right. But also too, remember that don't get caught up in mix and thinking that a European and a dark skin mixed and made, the variations of people that we see.
Colors.
Right. Because I remember in high school, there was a sister that was fair skinned, and both her parents were like dark.
Oh yeah.
And that was like the thing, like, hey,
But
how come you look like that and your parents are both dark? Like,
and the mother actually had the child,
right?
because
But-
sometimes it's
Right, so not
child.
yeah.
But the mother had the child. Mother had the child.
So not every
But that's because of biology, which study how the genes could be, so
Right,
that's
but-
because of genes.
yeah, but that
So
was
somebody
happening
way
back then. That was happening back then too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So this is how we have this
the different colors.
color scheme,
Yeah, part of it is that way too,
right?
because of the mixture. But that had become
Because melanin is uncontainable. Melanin does whatever it wants to do. So it's gonna take two dark, make a light. It's gonna take a light and a dark, and then make darker than
yeah.
right, because melanin is spontaneous like that,
Yeah.
right? Melanin is not sticking to no script that this is how it's gonna go. You know what I mean? Not because you're dark
Okay,
skinned.
that's melanin, but if you don't have the melanin, then it's not the case. Because the point is that the only way to have a blue-eyed child is that both the parents are blue, have blue eyes. And if you have a blue-eyed child, and one has blue eyes and one has brown eyes, that child is somebody else. Because you can only have a blue-eyed child. You have both blue eyes.
Well,
No,
So I heard okay.
that's
We
up
don't
to
need to go that
interpretation. Yeah.
That's melanin. Melanin is what
Yeah.
makes the color of the eye. So it's the same thing that Ranjit
Melanin
was
as
saying.
well?
Oh yeah, melanin is anything.
I
with
thought it was the
color.
lack of melanin that caused the bleak way in blue.
Right, but right now I know a couple who the parents both have brown eyes and their oldest daughter has blue eyes. Blue, right? That's what color her eyes are. And that's
How do
definitely
you know
their
the father of that child?
that because the child looks just like him. It's
Well,
just
I don't know. I don't know. I
because,
just
you
read this
know,
thing about what, like something like 65% of the children have different fathers than they
no,
want.
these
But that's all
children
right.
belong to this
This is
man
a
and
kind
this
of
woman.
aside. It's not really
Yeah.
the basic, but yes, okay.
Yeah.
I got it. I got it.
But the melanin is a funny thing, like Grant
Yeah,
was saying.
I've
It,
been
it
studying
can't be
melanin a lot
contained.
more.
Cannot be contained.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
that,
that time right now.
Mhm.
Right,
But that was
so-
an aside. It's not. But it was.
So I just want to almost pretty much finish up with this piece from Black Heretics, Radical Political Intellectuals, Black Prophets. That's by Anthony Bowles. It says, so this is talking about Claudius Henry in Jamaica, representing Rastafaris. By then, Henry had developed a cogent analysis of the nature of internal self-government, anti-colonial Creole nationalism in Jamaica, and the possibilities of full decolonization. His recognition of the anti-colonial political struggles in the island made his ideological view an added feature of Rastafari ideology. This specific concern with Jamaican politics would reappear in the 1960s in the work of Sam Brown and his program for Black Redemption. At the time that Howell and the early Rastas were developing their symbolic revolt against the colonial order, Jamaica's decolonization process was at the stage of internal self-government. The nationalist movement, born out of the 1938 Worker Rebellion, had won universal adult suffrage in 1944 and constructed a path to self-government which was rooted in the political ideals of a Creole nationalism. This form of anti-colonial nationalism paid no attention to the question of race or to the place of Africa in the imagination of the Jamaican popular classes. It attempted to rebuild a nation-state in which the hegemonic ideology would be a false multiracialism that operated under the cloak of European norms. Its ideological stance was rooted in late 19th century conceptions of the British Caribbean as populated by Creole Negroes who had the capacity to be civilized. What the popularity of the Henry movement signified was that the Creole nationalist movement had been unable to tap into the deepest subjectivities of Black Jamaicans. Henry represented a stream of Black redemptive thought that existed in late 19th and 20th century Jamaican social life. With its focus on Africa, its explicit vindication of Blackness, its Pan-Africanism, and its oftentimes religious expression, this current was seen by the Creole nationalist elites as backward and non-modern. It also was often regarded as atavistic, so much so that Rex Nettleford has argued that Creole nationalism created a Jamaicanism which abhorred Black nationalism. In this context, the oppositional activities of Henry were warning signs that all was not well with the formal anti-colonial movement and the gathering of momentum for political independence of the island. When the miraculous event did not occur, both the native ruling elite and the colonial office relaxed, feeling that Henry and his activities would soon disappear. They did not take his creativity into account. The failure of this miraculous event forced Henry to rethink his Back to Africa strategy. His rethinking led him to an elaboration of an analysis that Jamaica was itself a black country and therefore should be freed from colonial oppression. In a pamphlet issued on January 1960, Henry elaborated the reasons for his change. I have received official communications from Britain to the Jamaican government advising me not to preach anything to my people regarding repatriation back to Africa. They say there is no country in Africa willing to accept any great amounts of West Indians to settle down. Also, they have no reserve funds to sponsor such a movement. We as Rastafarians are not wanted in Jamaica. Our only hope for world peace and lasting freedom is now reorganizing to reconstruct and to build a new and righteous Jamaica, a government which will be approved by Jehovah God, the world's creator, a righteous government. So there clearly states that, one, that Henry had to rethink his strategy and realize that, like it says, there is no country in Africa willing to accept any great amounts of West Indians to settle down. And that was the truth then, and it's the truth now. And that he said, I've received official communications from Britain through my Jamaican government, right? And then they say, so this was according to Britain. So he's acknowledging that, I wanted to find out about Africa, so I went to Britain and they told me what I need to know. Because Africa's a colony. So you got to go to whoever owns the colony. And they did that and they realized, well, no, there's nobody who really wants, a great amount of people there. Right?
Yeah, so this is a reading to the members of the Moor Science Temple of America, March 11th, 1929. Islam, these are the instructions from your prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers, divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on, but the weak comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near. So says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Drew Ali. And that is why many hearts have turned to stone, and many have eyes to see but cannot see, and ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they would have been confounded of their sins. These are the trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your profit. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him at the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And to be proclaimed in every meeting, March 18th, 1929. Islam, I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement by now by the same people on our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The one that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world would not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the last few days. So the prophet knew about the sellout, he knew what was going to go down, and he put everything in place for the Moors who were going to come in with their eyes wide open, seeing and knowing, to make this movement what it should have been from back then, that it wasn't, because Noble Drew Ali had only sellouts around from the start.
History repeating itself.
History repeating itself.
I was reading about
But we, the core group, though, we have to mobilize against that. I mean, because we've had it happen too often.
Right.
Every time we get something going, it happens.
Yes.
So we have to mobilize against that, and we've got to contact those people too and get them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, see, it's just like people who say that they're the government, and they say, well, yeah, we're the government, and this is a democracy, so everybody has equal rights to everything, and right. When people don't do their job, right? They default their position. They don't have to get relieved if they default in their position. So the Moors who sold out the Prophet, they defaulted when they sold out. That's why Noble Drew Ali is saying that it's your Prophet and your movement. Because if you leave it to some other people to tell you, he'll say, well, it's mine and I can sell you a little bit. Well, the Circle 7 is mine because I copyrighted it after the Prophet passed. And now you can get it, but it's $50. Or you want a picture of the Prophet? Or that's $100. Because it's my Prophet. It's not yours. You know, because he came to me and I'm the reincarnation because there was a star and crescent in my eye, you know, after I passed out. And, you know, there's some gullible people that believe that. And they'll jump behind that guy. When he's robbing them. He defaulted. Right? That's why Noble Drew Ali made a corporate branch of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Because when those people revealed their card by trying to poison the Prophet, and him being a prophet, I mean, you know, you can't fool God, right? Him being sent by the higher force, right? Like push poison aside in his food and pushed away food and stuff like that, right? Just to give clues, you know what I mean? That, okay, I know, you know what I mean? And like, I know what's up. like, what are you guys gonna do next? You know what I mean? What's next, right? So he knew, and he put certain things in place, right? And left it there, right? So he made the Moorish Science Temple of America corporate, and then everybody who ever thought that they could own and whatever with regard to the Prophet and the Moorish Science Temple of America, they're trapped in that jurisdiction right now and can't get out because they confine themselves there. That's why you don't hear us say, yeah, we're Moorish Science Temple of America, because we're also Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and we're also Old Canaanite Temple, and we're also Moorish Divine and National Movement of the World, and we're also, you know, all these other things that we call ourselves. Just like you're saying with the labels thing, right? But our identifying ourselves as all these things is to show that it's all one. That there isn't factions of the Moorish movement. If you say Noble Drew Ali is the Prophet, then well, what's the beef about? What's the argument about? If you say that, you know, the red flag with the green 5-point star is the flag of your ancient foremothers and forefathers, okay, so what's the problem? What do you mean you need to see some qualifications to see if I'm really a Moor? Oh, from there talking like that, I already know that you don't have any authority. You're a sellout. And you defaulted your position. Or you wouldn't be coming to me trying to get me to default by getting down with the fraud that you're running. Which is what majority of them do. You know what I mean? You know? Yeah. They'll connect with some other groups and then try to undermine the head group. You know? And then all Moors that are active, that would be their story. You know, yeah, I was doing this and we did this and we did that and we did this and we did that and we did all this stuff for the temple and then got kicked out. And he's sitting there asking himself, well, how come I got kicked out of the temple and I was doing more stuff than everybody? Because that's not a temple. It's a building with a sign out front. Right? So using the Prophet, using his name, using his, you know, everything to try to make it look, give the appearance that it's the temple when it's really color of Moorish Science Temple.
Just use the name.
Yeah.
They didn't say it.
Exactly.
Jesus.
Right.
I was just surprised, so happy. I'm gonna tell my husband about this. So you guys have Yahushua in there.
Yeah.
Just
Because,
like, yay. No, sorry, I'm like,
you know,
for me, I'm just like,
yeah.
people don't even, I see that they're like,
Yeah. that shows you, right, the counterfeit of those spirits and how many counterfeit spirits are really out there. That if it's like we say, just like you say, oh, well, his name's Yahusha, and people act like they don't know. It's just like if, like you tell somebody you're not black, you're brown, and they want to defend that they're black. Like they want to defend it to the death that they're black. When like we're looking at each other, and you don't look like you're here, but that's their position. We can't wrong them. We just have to recognize that that's counterfeit spirit. So if you need some people to come build up something, take those morals over there, because they're not going to amount to nothing. They're just going to be counterfeit spirits. That's what it is. So there's no class tomorrow, but for the books for today, Black Man of the Nile, Dr. Ben, Noble Drew Ali, The Last Prophet, Prophecies and Hadiths, Charles Gibson, Spain and America,
Story of the Moors after Spain, Stanley Lane Poole. Black Heretics, Radical Political Intellectuals, Black Prophets, Anthony Bogues. And A Life of Reinvention, Malcolm X by Manning Marable.
You want to send Islam to all the Canaanland Moors
Islam.
for keeping up your due diligence and staying in line with the Prophet and the movement in Canaanland. Islam to Grand Vanguard, Adisa Hanib L. Islam to Chairman Tesba Bey. Islam to all the Moors that's constantly doing the work. Islam for the treasurer, the Grand Treasurer, Taika L. Islam to all the muftis, right? All the master teachers that's been, giving it to us and keeping us on point. Islam, Islam, Islam.
Islam, Moors.
Islam.
Close up with this.
Close with the prayer.
Yeah, you get that stretch out. Okay.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Mother and Father of love.
Mother and Father of love.
Truth, peace,
Freedom,
and justice. Allah's our protector.
Allah's our protector.
Our guide.
And
our salvation.
By night.
And by day.
Through
His and her holy prophet.
holy prophet.
Noble Drew Ali. Amen.
Amen.
Ameen. Ashe.
Hotep.
Islam.
Islam, Moors.